Everybody, welcome back to Crucial Conversations. This is video number 10, and today we're going to be talking about mastering our stories, mastering my stories. It's personal for us. Remember in our last video, I told you a story of an interaction that I had with my coworker, Jane. And I said in that when I received that email that was kind of terse and I interpreted it as kind of rude and disrespectful, that I wrote a story in my head. And that's what we're going to talk about today, how we can master the stories that we tell each other related to our crucial conversation. And once again, one of the authors of Crucial Conversations makes a pretty bold statement under the heading of mastering my stories. He said the central skill for taking control of the quality of your life and the quality of your relationships is the ability to master your stories. That's from Joseph Grenny. That's a pretty bold statement. But if you really think about it, so much of the way we walk through our lives is determined by how we react emotionally. And how we react emotionally is determined by the stories that we've got written in our heads. The objective is to separate fact from story. So let me go back to my story with Jane. I think as a result of this training that I'd had, it took me a little while, but I thought back through that. I was still trying to process what was going on, and I thought it through. And I thought to myself, wait a second. You know, I read an email and I interpreted it a certain way, but what if the way I interpreted it is not correct? What if the facts that I'm drawing from the way that email came about are not the correct facts? So I made up my mind I was going to call Jane. And I called her up and I said, Jane, this is Ben. And I said, listen, I asked you to send me some information about our customer, and you did. But the email came across very terse, and I interpreted it as disrespectful. And a story that I wrote in my head, Jane, was that, you know, I must have done something to offend you, or you don't like me, or something like that. That's a story that I wrote in my head. Is that correct? And Jane, as I recall, just kind of chuckled a little bit, and she said, no, Ben, she said, I am so sorry. I did not intend for that email to come across that way. I must have been in a hurry, and I was just trying to get you the information, and I certainly, no, Ben, we're good buddies. I appreciate everything you're doing out there, and I'll tell you what, my relationship with Jane improved as opposed to being one that was shut down, because I asked myself the question about, are the facts of the story that I'm writing correct, or is it just a story? I separated fact from story. Let me tell you about 3 clever stories that we tell ourselves very quickly that propel our emotions, and then our emotions justify our behavior, as we've talked about. The first story is the victim story. It's not my fault. The other person is a bad person, and I'm just a victim here. I'm suffering as a result. That's a story that I write, and you can just imagine the emotional responses and the consequences to any further relationship that might happen as a result of that story. The second story is the villain story. It's all your fault. I'm going to impute upon you a bad motive. You have bad motives. You are trying to hurt me. You have some other agenda. We do not have a common purpose. I'm perfectly innocent here. You're the guilty one. That's a story that we can write in our heads, and bad consequences from that too. Then the other story is the helpless story. Well, there's nothing else I can do. I've done everything I can do. We are powerless to do anything healthy or helpful. And this oftentimes stems out of the story that we tell about the other person who's a villain. I've done everything. And so we justify just, all right, I'm just going to walk away. I'm out of here. I'm done. I'm not going to take any other action because after all, I'm helpless. So in order to get to the rest of the story, here's 3 questions that we need to ask ourselves. What am I pretending not to notice about my role in the problem? Why would a reasonable, rational, decent person do this? In other words, instead of casting the other person as the villain or I'm the victim, give that other person the benefit of the doubt. Place them in the position of a reasonable, rational, decent person and ask your question, why would such a person act the way they're acting? Or take the actions they're taking. And then the third question is, what can I do right now to move towards what I really want? In other words, I'm not helpless. There is some action that I can take right now to move towards what I really want. Remember the questions that we asked earlier in the training. What is it that I really want? Thank you so much. Have a great day. Blessings, and we'll see you on the next video.